Promise me you won't let them find me." The child's whisper was so faint Claire Dawson almost mistook it for the wind pressing against the windows of Blackwood House. She stopped beside the nursery door, one hand still wrapped around a cup of warm milk. Beyond the glass, winter rain blurred the pine trees into dark shadows, and the nearest neighbor lived nearly 6 miles away. Claire had accepted the temporary nanny position because the pay could cover 3 months of rent. She had not expected a mansion where every clock stopped at sunset, where the staff avoided mirrors, and where a pale little boy seemed to know when strangers were coming long before any car appeared on the road. Lucien sat beneath a heavy grey blanket, his small face nearly colourless against the pillow. He looked no older than 3, though his dark eyes sometimes carried an exhaustion that did not belong to any child. "Who are you afraid of?" Claire asked, setting the milk on the nightstand. His gaze moved toward the hallway. Claire listened. Nothing, only rain, only the slow creak of an old house settling into the cold. She crouched beside him and touched the back of her fingers to his forehead. His skin was cool, but the pulse at his throat fluttered too quickly. The private physician had called it a rare blood disorder. No bright lights, no ordinary medicine, no hospital unless absolutely necessary. The instructions had sounded strange, but wealthy families often wrapped fear in secrecy. Claire had learned not to judge. Lucien's father was away on business and she had never met him. All she knew was that the staff called him Mr. De Luca, never Sebastian, and always lowered their voices when they said his name. "You're safe with me," Claire said. Lucien studied her as if measuring whether kindness could be trusted. Then he reached beneath the blanket and pulled out a tiny wooden horse with one broken wheel. "My mother gave me this." Claire had been told his mother was gone. She did not ask how. Instead, she placed the toy carefully on the nightstand. "Then we'll keep it safe too." A soft sound came from downstairs. Not the doorbell, not a knock. 3 measured taps against glass. Claire rose slowly. Every lamp in the hallway flickered at once. Lucien's fingers closed around her sleeve. His breathing changed. Too fast, too shallow. "They came before," he whispered. "Everyone said I was dreaming." Claire's stomach tightened. She had spent 4 years working with children, including frightened children, neglected children, and children who invented monsters because real explanations hurt more. But Lucia was not looking toward the dark corners of the room. He was looking directly at the security camera above the door. Its red light had gone out. Claire crossed the nursery and turned the lock. "Stay behind me." Another tap sounded, this time from the window 20 feet above the ground. Claire did not look. She drew the curtains, moved the dresser in front of the door, and reached for her phone. No signal. The house phone was silent. Even the digital monitor had gone black. Lucien began to tremble beneath the blanket, not from the cold but from recognition. Claire sat beside him and wrapped both arms around his narrow shoulders. "Listen to me," she said, keeping her voice calm. "You are not alone. Whatever happens, I am staying right here." His heartbeat raced against her palm. For one impossible second, she thought she heard another rhythm beneath it, slower and deeper, like something ancient waking inside the walls. Then Lucien lifted his face. His eyes, usually dark brown, flashed a deep crimson before returning to normal. Claire froze, but she did not release him. Downstairs, a heavy door opened without a sound. Footsteps entered the house, 1 pair, then 2, then 5. Lucien buried his face against her shoulder. "They found me." Claire looked at the locked door, the dark camera, and the rain trembling against the glass. She was only a nanny in a borrowed house, with no weapon, no signal, and no idea what kind of child she was holding. But when the first shadow appeared beneath the nursery door, fear gave way to something stronger. She tightened her arms around Lucien and whispered, "Then they'll have to come through me first." The shadow beneath the nursery door stopped moving. Claire held Lucien against her chest and listened to the silence on the other side. It was not the uncertain silence of someone deciding whether to enter. It was patient, deliberate. Whoever stood there already knew they had nowhere to run. The brass handle turned once, met the lock, then became still. "Claire," Lucien whispered, his voice shaking. "Do not answer them." She glanced toward the window. The nursery stood on the 3rd floor, nearly 30 feet above a stone courtyard. There was no fire escape, only a narrow ledge slick with rain. The closet offered no protection. The adjoining bathroom had one small window that would not open. The footsteps in the hallway shifted, spreading apart as if the strangers were taking positions. Claire forced herself to breathe slowly. Panic would frighten Lucien, and fear was already making his condition worse. His skin had grown colder beneath her hands. "Look at me," she said softly. We are going to play a quiet game. You copy every breath I take. She inhaled for 4 counts and released it for 4 more. Lucien tried, but his chest caught halfway. The handle moved again. This time a man spoke through the door. Miss Dawson, we sent by the physician. The child had met Dr. Harrow twice. He had never sent anyone without calling first, and he had never referred to Lucien as the child. What is the doctor's first name? She called. No answer came. Lucien clutched her sweater. They lie. Claire looked toward the old service bell beside the fireplace. The staff had shown it to her on her first day, explaining that it connected to the kitchen even when the electricity failed. She reached for it and pulled the cord 3 times. Somewhere deep inside the walls, metal chimed. The man outside sighed. "Open the door, Miss Dawson. You do not understand what you are protecting. Then explain it. That boy is dangerous." Claire looked down at Lucien. He was trembling so hard that the wooden horse rattled against the nightstand. Dangerous was not the word she would have chosen. Fragile, frightened, alone. Those were closer to the truth. "He is sick," she said, "and you are terrifying him." A thin silver line appeared beneath the door, moving slowly across the floorboards like liquid moonlight. Lucien recoiled. "Do not let it touch me." Claire grabbed a blanket and pressed it against the gap. The silver glow vanished beneath the fabric. But frost spread across the wood. The room grew colder. Claire pulled Lucien from the bed and guided him toward the bathroom. "Can you stand?" He nodded, though his knees nearly gave way. She wrapped the grey blanket around him, tucked the wooden horse into his hands, and led him across the room. Behind them, the nursery lock clicked open by itself. Claire shut the bathroom door and turned its small bolt. It would not hold for long. She lifted Lucien onto the marble counter, then pulled open the cabinet beneath the sink. There was enough space behind the towels for a child. "I am not leaving you," she promised. "I will be right here." Lucien shook his head. "They will take you, not if they believe you escaped." Claire removed one of his small slippers and carried it to the window. She pushed the latch until the frame opened half an inch, then wedged the slipper against it. Rain blew inside. From the nursery came the soft scrape of the dresser sliding away from the door. Claire returned to Lucien and helped him into the cabinet. Before she could close it, he caught her wrist. His eyes flashed crimson again, brighter this time. "My father will come." Claire gave him the calmest smile she could manage. "Then we only need to keep you safe until he does." The nursery door opened. Several footsteps crossed the floor. Claire shut the cabinet and stood in front of it just as the bathroom handle began to turn. At that same moment, every window in Blackwood House shook. A low sound rolled through the mansion, deeper than thunder and powerful enough to silence the strangers outside. Lucien's face changed behind the narrow cabinet opening. The fear in his eyes became hope. Far below, the front doors slammed shut on their own. Then a man's voice filled the house, cold, controlled, and impossible to ignore. "No one leaves with my son." The men outside the bathroom did not move. For one suspended second, Blackwood House seemed to hold its breath. Then footsteps sounded from the floor below, slow and measured, each one carrying through the walls with the weight of a warning. Claire stood in front of the cabinet, keeping her body between Lucien and the door. The handle stopped turning. A voice from the nursery whispered he was not supposed to return tonight. Another answered, "Take the boy now." The bathroom door swung inward before Claire could reach it. 3 men in dark coats filled the doorway, each wearing a silver ring. Their faces were pale, but not with fear. The tallest stepped forward and lifted one hand. "Move aside, Miss Dawson." Claire remained still. "You are not taking him." His expression hardened. "You do not know what he is. I know he is a sick child. He is more than that. Then you should be more ashamed of frightening him." The man glanced toward the cabinet. Claire shifted with him, blocking his view. Behind her, Lucien stayed silent. The stranger reached into his coat, but the lights above them burst back to life. Every bulb in the nursery glowed with a cold, white brilliance. The men froze. A figure stood beyond them in the hallway. Sebastian DeLuca wore a black overcoat darkened by rain. Water traced the sharp line of his jaw, but his face remained unnaturally pale, almost luminous beneath the hallway lamps. He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. "Step away from her." The tallest man turned slowly. "Mr. DeLuca, we can explain." Sebastian's gaze moved from the silver rings to Claire, then to the open cabinet behind her. His eyes settled on Lucien's frightened face. Something changed in the room. The air became colder, but the pressure in Claire's chest eased. The strangers felt it too. They lowered their hands. Sebastian entered the nursery with the calm of a man who had never needed permission. "You entered my home," he said. "You disabled my security. You approached my son." The word son struck Claire harder than the thunder outside. Lucien had said his father would come. She had expected a worried businessman, not this silent, commanding stranger who made armed intruders retreat without touching them. The tallest man forced a smile. The physician ordered an emergency transfer. Dr. Harrow is in Boston. Sebastian's voice remained level. He spoke with me 20 minutes ago. The smile disappeared. Sebastian looked toward Claire again. His attention paused on the blanket pressed beneath the nursery door, the rain blowing through the cracked bathroom window, and Lucien's missing slipper resting near the sill. He saw every choice she had made, yet there was no gratitude in his expression, only calculation. "Where is the rest of my household staff?" he asked. "I do not know," Claire said. The house went quiet before they came upstairs. One of the men shifted toward the hall. The front doors slammed somewhere below. Sebastian did not look away from Claire. "No one leaves until I understand what happened." Lucien pushed open the cabinet door and reached for him. Sebastian crossed the room in an instant so quick, Claire barely saw him move. He lifted the child with practiced care, one hand supporting Lucien's back. The boy buried his face against his father's shoulder. "She kept me safe," Lucien whispered. Sebastian's expression softened for less than a heartbeat, then his eyes returned to Claire. "Did she?" The question carried no comfort. Claire felt the room tilt beneath the weight of his suspicion. "Ask your son, I will." Sebastian touched 2 fingers to Lucien's neck and frowned. "His pulse is unstable." Claire stepped closer before she could stop herself. "He needs calm, not another transfer." "His breathing improves when he follows a 4-count rhythm." Sebastian's gaze sharpened. "How long has this episode lasted?" "About 7 minutes. What triggered it?" Claire looked at the men with silver rings. They did. Silence filled the nursery. Sebastian turned toward the strangers. "Downstairs now," they obeyed. When the last man disappeared into the hallway, 2 members of the household staff emerged from the stairwell, confused and pale. Sebastian gave them quiet orders to secure the house and find anyone missing. Then he faced Claire once more. Lucien still clung to his coat, but one small hand reached toward her. Sebastian noticed. "You will remain here tonight," he said. Claire met his cold eyes. "Am I a guest or a prisoner? That depends on what I learn." The words settled between them like frost. Claire had protected his child from strangers, but the man before her did not see a rescuer. He saw an unanswered question. As Sebastian carried Lucien toward the hall, the wooden horse slipped from the blanket and fell at Claire's feet. She picked it up and noticed something she had not seen before. Carved beneath the broken wheel was the same symbol engraved on every silver ring. Claire closed her fingers around the wooden horse before anyone noticed what she had found. The carved symbol beneath its broken wheel was small, no larger than a dime, but its curved lines matched the marks on the stranger's silver rings exactly. She looked toward the hallway where Sebastian had disappeared with Lucien. The child had said his mother gave him the toy. That meant the symbol had been inside Blackwood house, long before the men arrived. Claire slipped the horse into the pocket of her sweater and followed at a careful distance. 2 members of the household staff were moving through the corridor, checking doors and restoring the security system. Neither met her eyes. At the end of the hall, Sebastian carried Lucien into a private sitting room warmed by a stone fireplace. He lowered the boy onto a couch and wrapped another blanket around him. The cold authority Claire had seen in the nursery gave way to precise concern. He counted Lucien's breaths, checked his pulse, and spoke in a low voice until the trembling eased. Claire remained at the doorway. "He needs the wooden horse," she said. Sebastian turned. "Why? It helps him feel safe." His attention moved to her empty hands. "Where is it?" Claire hesitated. Revealing the symbol in front of the staff might warn whoever had allowed the intruders inside. "I left it upstairs." Sebastian studied her for a long moment. "You noticed something. It was not a question." Claire looked past him at the 2 servants waiting in the hall. "I would rather speak privately." One servant, a thin man named Mr. Vale, stepped forward. "Sir, the east entrance was opened with Miss Dawson's access card." Claire felt the air leave her lungs. "That is impossible. My card was in my purse." "Your purse was found beside the east door," Mr. Vale said. Sebastian's expression became unreadable. "Where is it now?" "In the security office, untouched." Claire shook her head. "I left it in the kitchen before taking Lucien upstairs. Someone moved it." Mr. Vale produced a tablet and held it out. A security image showed Claire entering the kitchen earlier that evening. Another showed a woman in the same grey sweater approaching the east corridor 10 minutes later. Her face was hidden, but her height and build were close enough to raise doubt. That is not me, Claire said. The camera lost its signal immediately afterward, Mr. Vale replied. Convenient, she said. Sebastian rose slowly. Lucien caught his sleeve. Father, she did not bring them. Rest, Sebastian told him. I will determine what happened. The child looked toward Claire, his eyes pleading with her not to leave. She crossed the room and knelt beside the couch. I am staying in the house, she promised. Sebastian heard the careful choice of words. In the west guest room, he said. The door will be guarded. You are a witness whose access card opened the house to men who came for my son, and I am the person who hid him from those men. A flicker of conflict passed through Sebastian's pale face. It vanished almost immediately. Both things can be true until I have proof. Claire wanted to argue, but Lucien's breathing had begun to quicken again. She lowered her voice. Do not question him tonight. He is exhausted. You are giving me instructions about my own child. I am reminding you that he is frightened. Sebastian looked at Lucien, then back at her. His anger did not rise. It settled into silence which felt heavier. Take Miss Dawson to the west room, he ordered. A housekeeper named Mrs. Finch led Claire away. The guest room was elegant but cold, with tall windows facing the pine forest and a clock that had stopped at 7:12. A guard took his place outside after the door closed. Claire waited until the footsteps in the corridor faded, then removed the wooden horse from her pocket. Under the lamp, the carved symbol looked older than the toy itself. She pressed the broken wheel, and a narrow compartment opened along the horse's belly. Inside was a tightly folded strip of paper. Claire unfolded it carefully. There were no names, only a date from 3 years earlier, and a short sentence written in faded ink. Trust no one who wears the house crest. A soft sound came from the other side of her door. Not the guard shifting his weight. Paper sliding across the floor, Claire approached and picked up a sealed envelope. Inside was a copy of her employment application, marked with information she had never written. At the bottom, beneath her forged signature, were 4 words that turned her hands cold. Candidate approved for access. Claire read the forged application twice, hoping the words would change. Candidate approved for access. They did not. Her name, address, work history and references were all accurate, but someone had added details about her medical training, her patience with nonverbal children, and her willingness to work in isolated homes. The profile did not describe an applicant. It described a tool selected for a purpose. She folded the paper and hid it inside the wooden horse just as the guard outside shifted. Miss Dawson? His voice was cautious. Are you awake? Claire crossed the room but did not open the door. Yes, the king requests your presence, the king. The word stopped her hand above the lock. Mr. DeLuca had been treated like a powerful man, but no one had called him that before. She opened the door and found the guard avoiding her eyes. What did you call him? You should ask him yourself. He escorted her downstairs through corridors that felt different now. The portraits along the walls showed the same pale face across centuries, dressed in changing styles but never seeming to age. Claire slowed before one dated 1871. Sebastian stood beside a stone balcony, his expression identical to the man waiting downstairs. The guard urged her forward. In the library, Sebastian stood behind a long table covered with security logs, staff records and silver rings sealed inside clear evidence bags. Rain tapped against the windows. Mr. Vale remained near the fireplace. Mrs. Finch stood beside Lucien, who was wrapped in a blanket on a nearby couch. The child's eyes found Claire immediately. She came, he whispered. Sebastian looked at her. Show me what you took from the nursery. Claire kept her expression still. Why do you think I took anything? Because you told me the horse was upstairs, but it was not found there. Mr. Vale stepped forward. We searched the room. Claire looked at the crest pinned to his collar. Its shape matched the symbol beneath the broken wheel. Trust no one who wears the house crest. She understood why Lucien's mother had hidden the warning. I will show you, Claire said, but not while he is here. Mr. Vale stiffened. Sebastian's gaze sharpened. Explain. Your son's toy contains a message warning against anyone wearing that crest. Silence settled over the library. Mr. Vale gave a quiet, humorless laugh. A convenient accusation from a woman whose access card opened the east entrance. Claire removed the horse and placed it on the table. She pressed the wheel. The compartment opened. Sebastian unfolded the note without touching the edges. For the first time, his composure fractured. Not fear, recognition. This is Elena's handwriting, he said. Lucien sat up. Mother, Sebastian closed his hand around the paper. She wrote this before she died. Mr. Vale's face remained calm. But Claire noticed his left thumb rubbing the edge of his silver ring. A grieving woman may have been confused, he said. She was never confused, Sebastian replied. His voice dropped so low that everyone in the room became still. Claire placed the forged application beside the note. This was pushed under my door. Sebastian examined it. This signature is not yours. No. Then someone arranged your employment before you ever contacted the agency. Mrs. Finch covered her mouth. But why choose her? Lucien answered before anyone else could. Because she makes the pain stop. Every adult turned toward him. The boy pressed one hand to his chest. When Claire holds my hand, the cold gets quiet. Claire remembered the second heartbeat she had felt beneath his pulse, slow and ancient. Sebastian crossed to the couch and knelt. Since when? The first night. Sebastian looked back at Claire, suspicion giving way to something more dangerous, uncertainty. What did you do? Mr. Vale moved toward the door. Sir, we should secure the lower level. Sebastian rose. You will remain here. The command stopped him. A sharp chime sounded from the medical monitor beside Lucien. His breathing faltered. Claire reached him first and began the 4-count rhythm. Lucien followed, but the numbers on the screen continued falling. Sebastian stood beside her, helpless beneath all his authority. Tell me what you need, he said. Claire took Lucien's small hand and felt the hidden pulse answer hers. Warmth spread through his steadied. Across the room, Mr. Vale stared at their joined hands with unmistakable alarm. Claire saw it. Sebastian saw it too. Then Lucien opened his eyes and whispered, "He knew she would help me, that is why he brought her here." Mr. Vale stopped rubbing his ring. The movement was small, but Sebastian noticed it. Claire saw the change in his face before anyone spoke. The uncertainty vanished. In its place came the cold patience of a man who had survived too many betrayals to react without proof. "Who brought her here?" Sebastian asked Lucien. The boy's fingers tightened around Claire's hand. "The man from the stairs." Mr. Vale stepped away from the fireplace. "The child is confused. His condition is worsening." "Then why are you afraid of what he remembers?" Claire asked. Mr. Vale looked at her with quiet contempt. "You have been in this house for 3 days, long enough to know you wanted that monitor to keep falling." Mrs. Finch drew a sharp breath. Sebastian lifted one hand, silencing the room. He approached Mr. Vale slowly. "Remove the ring." Mr. Vale did not move. "It is the house crest, sir. I know what it is. Then you know I have worn it for 40 years. Remove it." Mr. Vale slid the silver ring from his finger and placed it on the table. Sebastian examined the underside. A narrow groove had been cut beneath the crest. It was identical to the hidden compartment inside Lucien's toy. Claire looked toward the evidence bags containing the intruder's rings. Each one carried the same altered design. "The crest is being used as a key," she said. Sebastian turned toward the security records. "A key to what?" Mrs. Finch answered in a whisper. Mr. Vale's calm expression finally broke. Those passages were sealed decades ago. "Not all of them," Mrs. Finch said. "Lady Elena used one to reach the nursery during the winter lockdown." Lucien looked at the wooden horse. "Mother showed me the small stairs." Sebastian faced his son. "Where are they?" Lucien pointed toward the library wall behind the fireplace. Mr. Vale moved suddenly toward the hallway, but the 2 guards outside entered and blocked his path. Sebastian did not raise his voice. "You will remain here until I know why men wearing altered crests entered my son's room. You are allowing a stranger to turn you against your own household," Mr. Vale said. Sebastian's gaze shifted briefly to Claire. "No, I am allowing evidence to speak." It was the first time he had defended her, though he did not look pleased about it. Claire felt no triumph, only the fragile beginning of trust. Sebastian ordered the guards to escort Mr. Vale to a secure room and confiscate every key he carried. As he passed Claire, Mr. Vale leaned close enough for only her to hear. "You were not chosen to save the boy." Claire kept her face still. "Then why was I chosen?" His faint smile held no warmth. To prove he could be reached, the guards led him away before she could ask more. Sebastian had heard only the whisper, not the words. "What did he say? That I was selected as a test?" Claire showed him the forged application again. Someone wanted to know whether an outsider could get close to Lucien. Sebastian looked toward his son. The meaning settled over him with terrible clarity. Claire had not been hired because she was trusted. She had been placed inside Blackwood House because she was expendable. If she succeeded, the conspirators would learn the household's weaknesses. If she failed, suspicion would fall on her. "You were used," Sebastian said. "So was your son." Their eyes met. For the first time, neither stood against the other. The wall behind the fireplace gave a low mechanical click. Lucien had climbed from the couch and pressed the broken wooden horse into a carved space beside the mantel. A hidden panel opened several inches. releasing a breath of cold air. Beyond it, narrow stone steps descended into darkness. Sebastian lifted Lucien away from the opening. Claire noticed fresh mud on the first step and a torn piece of grey fabric caught on an iron nail. It matched the sweater worn by the figure in the security image. "Someone used this passage tonight," she said. Sebastian examined the fabric and made certain the camera saw someone dressed like you. A faint sound traveled upward from below, not footsteps. A telephone ringing somewhere beneath the house. Lucien covered his ears. "That is the same sound." Sebastian looked down at him. "From when?" The night mother went away. The ringing stopped. Then a recorded woman's voice rose from the darkness. Weak with static but unmistakably clear. "Sebastian, if you hear this, the sickness was never natural." The recorded voice faded into static, leaving the hidden passage colder than before. Sebastian stood motionless beside the open panel, one arm around Lucien and the other braced against the stone mantel. Claire had never seen grief become so quiet. "That was Elena," he said. No one answered. The name seemed to belong to the house itself, buried in its walls with every secret the staff had been trained not to speak. Sebastian handed Lucien to Mrs. Finch and stepped into the passage. Claire followed before anyone could stop her. "You should remain upstairs," he said. "Someone forged my records, copied my clothes, and used me to reach your son. I am already involved." His pale eyes rested on her for a moment, then he turned and descended. The stairs narrowed as they went, curving beneath Blackwood House for nearly 40 feet. Old electric lamps flickered along the walls. The air smelled of stone, dust, and something metallic Claire could not identify. At the bottom, they found a small room hidden behind an iron door. A telephone sat on a desk beside several medical files, a tape recorder, and dozens of glass vials filled with dark liquid. Sebastian crossed directly to the recorder. A red light blinked. He pressed the button. Elena's voice returned, clearer now. "If Lucien is still ill, then the council continued the treatment after my death. His weakness is not inherited. It was created slowly enough to resemble a royal blood disorder." Claire looked at the vials. Each label carried Lucien's name and a date beginning shortly after his birth. "Treatment," she repeated. "That is what she called it." Sebastian opened one file, his jaw tightened. "These records were signed by Dr. Harrow. Can he be trusted? I no longer know." The recording continued. "They cannot remove Lucien openly. His death would divide the houses. But a sick heir creates uncertainty. And uncertainty creates opportunity. Vale knows the passages. Others carry the altered crest the council until you identify who authorized the doses." Lucien's small voice echoed from the stairs. "Father?" Mrs. Finch had brought him down despite Sebastian's order. The boy struggled free of her hand and ran toward Claire. Sebastian caught him gently before he reached the table. "You should not see this." Lucien looked at the vials without fear. "That is the medicine that makes the cold come back." Claire felt her stomach turn. "They have been giving this to him while claiming it helps." Sebastian lifted one vial to the light. The liquid inside moved too slowly. "It suppresses his blood." Claire met his gaze. "You keep saying blood as if it means more than medicine." The room became silent. Sebastian set the vial down. "It does." He looked toward Mrs. Finch. "Take the guards upstairs. Seal every entrance. No staff member leaves." When they were alone, he placed Lucien in a chair and knelt in front of Claire. The gesture was not submission. It was the careful decision of a man about to destroy the world she understood. "What you saw in his eyes was real," he said. "What you felt in his pulse was real. Lucien is not suffering from a human illness because Lucien is not human." Claire remembered his cold skin, the crimson flash, the impossible second rhythm beneath his heart. "What is he?" Sebastian's face seemed even whiter under the underground lights. "He is a vampire." The word should have sounded absurd. It did not. Too many pieces had already found their places. Claire looked at Lucien, expecting him to seem different. He only looked tired and afraid that she might step away. She moved closer instead, his fingers wrapped around hers. Sebastian watched the choice with an expression she could not read. "And you?" she asked. "I am the same." "The staff called you king." He rose slowly. The air around him seemed to change, not through movement but through the weight of truth finally spoken. "Sebastian de Luca is the name I use in the human world. Within ours, I am the sovereign of the royal houses." Claire looked from him to Lucien. "Then he is not only your son, he is the crown prince." The central mystery shifted at once. The strangers had not come for a wealthy child. They had come for an heir. Lucien squeezed Claire's hand. "Are you scared of me now?" She crouched beside him. "I am scared for you. That is different." His shoulders loosened. Sebastian turned away, but not before Claire saw the relief in his eyes. On the desk, the recorder clicked again. Elena's voice returned for one final sentence. If the human woman is there, then the blood recognized her, and the council will not stop until both of them are gone. Claire kept her hand around Lucien's while Elena's final warning dissolved into silence. The blood recognized her. The words should have sounded impossible, yet the evidence was standing beside her with an ancient king's face and a frightened child's eyes. Sebastian removed the tape from the recorder and placed it inside his coat. "We leave this room now," he said. "Why?" Claire asked. "Because the council already knows the message was activated." As if the house had heard him, a bell sounded far above them. One slow note, then another. Sebastian's expression hardened. "That is not an alarm, it is a summons." They returned upstairs through the hidden passage. The library had changed during their absence. The rain still struck the windows, but 12 figures now stood beyond the glass doors of the central hall, dressed in dark formal clothing. Their faces were pale, their posture perfectly still. No vehicles had approached, no guard had announced them. They had simply arrived. Mrs. Finch whispered, "The Royal Council." Lucy moved closer to Claire. Sebastian stepped between them and the doorway. "They were not invited. Can they enter?" Claire asked. "They believe they do not need permission." The doors opened. An older woman with silver hair entered first, followed by 11 members wearing the same house crest Claire had seen on the rings. Unlike the intruders, they carried no sign of open threat. Their calm was worse. It belonged to people accustomed to making terrible decisions sound reasonable. "Your Majesty," the woman said, "we received notice that the prince suffered another episode." Sebastian did not bow. "From whom?" "Dr. Harrow. He is in Boston. He serves the crown wherever he stands." Her gaze moved to Claire, "And this must be the human caretaker." Lucien tightened his grip on Claire's fingers. "The woman unusual." Sebastian's voice became colder. "State your purpose, Lady Voss." "The council has voted to remove the prince from Blackwood House for specialized care." There was no vote. "You were absent. Then there was no lawful counsel." A faint tension passed through the room. Claire understood the conflict without knowing every rule. They expected Sebastian to defend his authority. They did not expect him to defend her. Lady Voss looked toward the sealed evidence bags on the table. "You have detained members of your own household based on accusations made by a stranger. I detained them based on altered royal crests, forged security records, and a hidden laboratory beneath my home." For the first time, several council members exchanged glances. Lady Voss recovered quickly. "Then the human has compromised your judgment. The human kept my son alive while men carrying your symbol entered his nursery." The words landed with quiet force. Claire looked at Sebastian. He did not turn toward her, but the meaning was unmistakable. He had chosen a side. Lady Voss approached the table. "The prince's condition requires royal blood medicine. A human cannot understand what she witnessed." Claire removed the forged application from the wooden horse and placed it beside Elena's note. "I understand that someone selected me before I applied. I understand that my access card was copied. I understand that Lucien was given something that made him weaker, and that your people arrived before anyone outside this house was told." Lady Voss's expression remained composed, but one man behind her lowered his eyes. Sebastian saw it. "Lord Mercer," he said. The man looked up. "Who informed the council?" "Dr. Harrow." "At what time?" "Shortly after midnight." Mrs. Finch checked the mantel clock. "It is 11:48. The room went still. Lord Mercer realized his mistake too late. He had described a call from a future that had not happened. Sebastian walked toward him, not with anger but with certainty. "You knew the prince would suffer another episode because the episode was scheduled." Lady Voss interrupted. "This is speculation." Claire looked at the medical files Sebastian had carried upstairs. Every vial label included a date and time. She opened the most recent record. Tonight's dose was listed for 11:30. Lucien had begun failing minutes later. Sebastian took the page from her and held it where the entire council could see. "No one leaves this house until every name attached to this treatment is identified." Lady Voss's pale face lost its calm. "You would confine the royal council for the word of one human woman." Sebastian moved beside Claire and Lucien. His presence formed a shield without touching either of them. "No," he said, "I would confine the royal council for conspiring against the crown prince. The human woman is simply the reason you failed." Then the main doors closed behind the council, and every royal crest in the room began to glow. The glowing crests cast pale light across the central hall, tracing the same curved symbol Claire had found beneath Lucien's broken wheel. Several council members stared down at their jewelry as if seeing it for the first time. Lady Voss did not. She lifted her chin and looked directly at Sebastian. "The seals are responding to royal authority." Sebastian's gaze moved across the room. "No. They are responding to a command hidden inside the crest. One by one, the marks brightened. The altered rings inside the evidence bags glowed as well. Claire noticed that Lord Mercer's crest pulsed faster than the others. "His is different," she said. Every face turned toward him. Lord Mercer stepped back. "Then remove it," Sebastian said. Mercer hesitated. That was enough. 2 royal guards moved to either side of him, but Sebastian raised one hand. "Let him choose." Mercer looked toward Lady Voss. She gave no sign of help. Slowly he removed the crest from his coat. The glow did not fade. Instead, a soft mechanical sound came from somewhere beneath the floor. Lucien pressed against Claire's side. "The stairs are opening again." A narrow section of wall beside the library shifted inward, revealing another entrance to the hidden passages. Sebastian's expression darkened. The crests were designed to unlock every sealed route in this house. Claire understood the full purpose at once. That is how they entered without appearing on the cameras. Lady Voss spoke before Mercer could answer. "These passages predate everyone in this room. Any member of the old houses could have used them, but only someone with an altered crest could activate them," Claire said. She pointed to Mercer's hand. A dark line marked the skin where the metal had rested. "And his has been used recently." Mercer covered the mark. Sebastian stepped closer. "Who authorized Lucien's doses?" Mercer remained silent. "Who selected Claire Dawson?" Lucien's breathing began to quicken. Claire knelt beside him and took both of his hands. "Stay with me. 4 counts in, 4 counts out." He followed her voice. The glow from the crests weakened as his breathing steadied. Claire looked up. They react to him. Sebastian turned toward the council. "The altered crest draws power from the crown bloodline." Lady Voss's calm finally cracked. "That is impossible. You knew enough to use it," Claire said. The accusation landed harder because she spoke without raising her voice. Mercer glanced toward Lady Voss again. Sebastian saw it. "There is your answer. You have no right to accuse the first house," Lady Voss said. "I have every right," Sebastian replied. "You are standing in my home beside proof that my son was weakened to make the succession uncertain." The council shifted uneasily. Not all of them were part of the conspiracy. Claire could see that now. Some looked frightened, others looked betrayed. Sebastian saw it too. "Those who knew nothing will remain and testify. Those who participated will be identified tonight." Mercer's composure failed. "You do not understand what the council faced. The prince was unstable. The houses feared what would happen if he inherited the crown." Lucien heard every word. His fingers went cold in Claire's hands. "I am not dangerous," he whispered. Claire looked at him. "No, you are sick because they made you sick." Sebastian's face changed at the sound of his son's voice. The king disappeared for a moment, leaving only a father who had failed to see the truth soon enough. "Lucien," he said, kneeling beside him, "none of this is your fault." The boy looked from Sebastian to Claire. "Will they take me away?" "No," they answered at the same time. Their eyes met over him. The distance between them narrowed, not through trust fully formed, but through a promise made together. Mercer gave a bitter laugh. "You think the human can save him because his pulse steadies near her. You still do not know why." Sebastian stood. "Then tell me." Mercer looked at Claire with something close to pity. Elena found her name years ago. She knew Claire's family carried a rare blood trait that could stabilize royal children. She arranged the application before her death. Claire felt the room tilt. "I never knew her." "She knew of you." Mercer pointed toward the wooden horse. The note was not only a warning, it was a map. Sebastian opened the toy again and examined the compartment. Beneath the folded message lay a second layer of wood. Claire pressed it, and a tiny strip of paper slid free. On it was her mother's name, followed by a date from 26 years earlier. Sebastian read the line beneath it, then looked at Claire with stunned understanding. "Your mother once saved Elena's life." Claire stared at her mother's name until the letters blurred. Margaret Dawson had died when Claire was 12, leaving behind a box of family photographs, a silver locket, and almost no stories about the years before Claire was born. There had never been any mention of Elena, Blackwood House, or a hidden world ruled by bloodlines. "How?" Claire asked. Sebastian handed her the narrow strip of paper. "The date is 26 years ago. You were an infant." Lord Mercer lowered his gaze. "Elena was traveling through northern Maine when hunters discovered her identity. Margaret Dawson found her injured near a county road and hid her until sunset. She never asked what Elena was. She simply refused to abandon someone who needed help." Claire heard her mother's voice in the memory of an ordinary kitchen, telling her that kindness only mattered when it cost something. The lesson had once seemed simple. Now it reached across decades. "Why did Elena search for me?" "Royal blood remembers mercy," Mercer said. "Your mother's presence calmed Elena's weakened pulse. The trait passed to you more strongly." Claire looked at Lucien. That is why he improves when I hold his hand. Not because you are medicine, Sebastian said sharply. His anger was directed at the council, but his eyes remained on her. Because your body carries a harmless rhythm that helps his blood regulate itself. Lady Voss stepped forward, which makes Miss Dawson valuable to the crown. Sebastian turned toward her. She is not property. The words silenced the hall. Claire saw several council members exchange uneasy glances. A king defending a human was more dangerous to them than any accusation. Lady Voss recovered first. No one suggested ownership, but the prince requires stability, and the human provides it. She must remain under royal supervision. She will decide where she remains. Sebastian's answer came without hesitation. Claire felt something shift between them. Hours earlier, he had locked her behind a guarded door. Now he was placing her freedom above the council's demands. Lucien tugged gently at her sleeve. Will you leave? His question carried no manipulation, only the quiet fear of a child who had learned that people disappeared without warning. Claire knelt beside him. Not tonight. His shoulders relaxed, but Lady Voss watched the exchange with cold calculation. Mercy has made you careless, Sebastian. The houses will not accept a human influencing the heir. The houses will accept the truth, he said, and the truth is that members of this council poisoned my son while calling it treatment. Lord Mercer sank into a chair. The doses were not meant to kill him. They were meant to keep him weak, Claire said. Weak enough to control, sick enough to question his future. Mercer did not deny it. Sebastian opened the medical file and turned each page with deliberate care. Who developed the formula? Dr. Harrow, Mercer whispered. Who ordered its use? Mercy remained perfectly still. That stillness answered before he did. The first house approved it, he said. A murmur moved through the council. 3 members stepped away from Lady Voss. Sebastian placed the file on the table. Guards, separate everyone who signed these records. No one is to be harmed. No one is to be questioned without witnesses. The guards obeyed, escorting Mercer and 4 council members toward the east rooms. Lady Voss remained. You cannot detain me based on the confession of a frightened man. Claire unfolded Elena's note. There is more than his confession. She turned the paper toward the light. Faint writing appeared along the edge, visible only when warmed by the nearby fireplace. Sebastian read it aloud. The first house ordered the sickness, forced the king to name a successor from her line. Lady Voss's composure finally disappeared. Elena was unstable. Elena was preparing evidence, Sebastian replied. And you buried it with father. Did they make mother go away too? The question struck the room harder than any accusation. Sebastian did not offer a comforting lie. I do not know yet. He knelt and placed one hand over Lucien's. Claire covered the child's other hand with hers. The hidden rhythm beneath his pulse steadied almost at once. Sebastian felt it through Lucien, and his gaze lifted to Claire's. I judged you before I understood what you had done, he said quietly. I confined you after you protected him. I was wrong. A king's apology required no audience, yet the entire council heard it. Claire studied the man before her, ancient and powerful, but humbled by the truth. Then help me keep him safe, she said. Sebastian closed his hand gently around his son's. From this moment forward, we do it together. Behind them, Lady Voss moved toward the open passage, but the wooden horse in Claire's hand clicked once, and every hidden door in Blackwood House sealed at the same time. The hidden doors sealed with a series of deep mechanical clicks, trapping every secret passage behind stone and iron. Lady Voss stopped 3 feet from the wall and turned slowly. Her silver hair caught the pale light from the glowing crests, but the confidence in her face had begun to fracture. You cannot imprison the first house, she said. Sebastian stood beside Claire and Lucien, his white face calm enough to make the warning more powerful. I am not imprisoning a house. I am detaining those who endangered my son. Lady Voss looked toward the remaining council members. You would permit this? A human enters the royal home, manipulates the heir, and within 3 days the king turns against centuries of law. Claire felt Lucien tense beside her. She lowered herself to his height and kept one hand around his. Breathe with me. Sebastian heard her, and without looking away from Lady Voss, he matched the same steady rhythm. 4 counts in, 4 counts out. Lucien's pulse settled between them. The sight changed the room more than any command could have. 3 council members removed their crests and placed them on the table. An elderly man named Lord Alden spoke first. The law does not protect those who weaken the heir. Another council member nodded. The medicals must be examined before dawn. Lady Voss's gaze hardened. You are choosing fear over order. No, Claire said. They are choosing a child over your ambition. Lady Voss turned toward her. You believe kindness makes you worthy to stand here? No. I believe Lucien deserved someone who would stand here when everyone else looked away. Sebastian's eyes moved to Claire. There was no suspicion left in them now, only recognition. Lady Voss reached into her coat and produced a narrow black case. The guards moved, but Sebastian raised his hand. Open it. She placed the case on the table. Inside rested a single glass vial marked with the royal seal. This is the final stabilizing dose, she said. Without it, the prince may not survive the night. Claire studied the liquid. It looked identical to the vials found beneath the house. You called the other doses treatment too, because they were measured to control his condition. You created his condition, Sebastian said. Lady Voss met his gaze. We protected the kingdom from an heir whose power could not be predicted. Lucien looked down at his small hands as though they had betrayed him. Claire closed her fingers gently around them. There is nothing wrong with you, she said. They needed you to believe there was. Lady Voss pushed the vial toward Sebastian. Refuse it, and you gamble with his life. The room fell silent. Sebastian did not touch the case. Instead, he turned to Mrs. Finch. Bring the independent physician from the Western estate. The roads are flooded. It will take nearly an hour. The monitor beside Lucien sounded a soft warning. His pulse was rising again. Lady Voss watched the numbers with terrible patience. You do not have an hour. Claire placed both hands around Lucien's. The hidden rhythm answered, but more weakly than before. The poison had been building in his system for years. Her presence could steady him, not remove what had been done. Sebastian knelt beside them. Tell me what you need. Claire looked at the medical records, the vial, and the labels from the underground room. The last treatment was scheduled at 11:30. If their formula works by suppressing his natural blood, then the answer is not another dose. It is stopping the cycle and supporting him until his body clears it. Lord Alden stepped forward. Royal blood recovers quickly when the suppressant is withdrawn. How quickly? Sebastian asked. If his pulse remains stable, perhaps by sunrise. Lady Voss's voice became sharp. You would trust the guess of a nanny over the council physician? Sebastian looked at Claire, then at Lucien. I trust the woman who kept him alive while your council measured his decline. He closed the black case and handed it to a guard. Seal it with the other evidence. Lady Voss took one step back. Lord Alden removed a folded document from his coat. Under the ancient protection law, any council member may call an emergency judgment when the crown prince is placed in deliberate danger. One by one, the uninvolved council members signed their names. The judgment stripped Lady Voss and her allies of authority until a full hearing could be held. No shouting followed, no struggle, only the quiet sound of a pen crossing paper while centuries of power changed hands. Guards escorted Lady Voss toward the east wing. At the doorway she looked back at Claire. When the prince no longer needs you, this kingdom will remember what you are. Sebastian answered, will remember what she did. The doors closed behind Lady Voss. Lucien leaned against Claire, exhausted but breathing evenly. Outside, the rain began to weaken. Sebastian looked toward the dark windows, then at the medical monitor. Sunrise is 6 hours away. Claire adjusted the blanket around Lucien's shoulders. Then we stay with him for 6 hours. Sebastian sat beside them on the floor, setting aside rank, distance, and every law that had kept him alone. For the first time, Lucien rested between his father and the woman who had refused to abandon him. Then Mrs. Finch returned, carrying a sealed letter found inside Lady Voss's coat. Across the front, in Dr. Harrow's handwriting, were the words, "Administer the final dose only if the king discovers the truth." Mrs. Finch placed the letter on the table, and Sebastian read the line twice before breaking the seal. Inside was a single page written in Dr. Harrow's precise hand. The final dose was not medicine, it was a contingency. If Lucien recovered enough to expose the conspiracy, the vial would force his pulse into a collapse that could be blamed on the natural progression of his illness. Claire looked toward the black case now held by the guard. They planned for every outcome except someone refusing to trust them. Sebastian's face became still in the way it did when anger moved beyond words. Where is Harrow now? Mrs. Finch checked the security report. His vehicle entered the North Road 12 minutes ago. Lord Alden turned toward the windows. He is coming here. Then he believes the dose was given, Claire said. Sebastian understood at once, and he expects to confirm Lucien's death before dawn. The monitor beside the couch gave another warning tone. Lucien's pulse rose, then dipped. Claire sat beside him and guided his breathing, but his eyelids fluttered with exhaustion. Stay with me, she whispered. I am tired, he said. You can rest. But keep listening to my voice. Sebastian knelt on the other side and placed his hand over Lucien's chest. For centuries, his authority had moved armies, ended feuds, and silenced entire rooms. None of it could command his son's heartbeat. Claire saw the fear he refused to show anyone else. He needs to feel safe, she said. Not watched, not examined, safe. Sebastian removed his coat and sat on the floor. He pulled Lucien gently against him, holding him as a father rather than a king. Claire kept one hand around the child's fingers and began the 4-count rhythm again. This time Sebastian joined her. Their voices stayed low, and even while the storm weakened beyond the windows. Minutes passed, then an hour. The council members moved quietly through the hall, organizing the evidence and reviewing each medical record. No one interrupted the small circle beside the couch. Near 2 in the morning, headlights appeared beyond the gates. Dr. Harrow's car stopped at the front entrance. Guards escorted him inside. He entered carrying a medical bag and wearing an expression of practiced concern. "Your Majesty, I came as soon as I received the alert." His gaze moved to Lucien, then to the closed black case on the evidence table. A flicker of confusion crossed his face. Sebastian noticed. "You expected the vial to be empty." Harrow set down his bag. "I expected the prince to receive necessary treatment." Lord Alden handed him the letter. "Is this your handwriting?" Harrow read the page and looked around the room. "This has been taken out of context." Claire stood without releasing Lucien's hand. "What context makes a final dose necessary only after the king learns the truth?" Harrow's calm began to thin. "You are a nanny. You cannot understand royal medicine. I understand that his condition improves when your medicine stops." The monitor supported her words. Lucien's pulse, though still fragile, had become more regular. Harrow looked at the numbers. "Temporary stabilization proves nothing." Sebastian rose carefully, leaving Lucien supported against Claire. "Then explain why every severe episode followed your scheduled treatment." Harrow glanced toward Lady Voss, but she was no longer in the hall. "The council approved the protocol." "The council did not write this letter," Sebastian said. "You did." Harrow's shoulders lowered. For the first time he looked less like a physician and more like a man trapped by his own records. "The first house believed the kingdom needed certainty. You gave a child years of pain to manufacture that certainty," Claire said. Harrow did not answer. Lord Alden opened the medical bag under guard supervision. Inside were ordinary instruments, sealed documents, and a second black vial identical to the first. Harrow had brought another dose in case Lady Voss failed. The final doubt left the room. Sebastian ordered that Harrow be confined with the others until the formal hearing. No one touched him except to take the bag. He left in silence, his authority gone before the doors closed. At 4:30, Lucien's temperature began to rise toward normal. At 5:15, the hidden second rhythm beneath his pulse grew stronger. Claire felt it first, then guided Sebastian's hand to the same place. He looked at her with wonder he did not try to hide. He is recovering. His body is remembering what they forced it to forget. The first grey light appeared behind the trees. Lucien opened his eyes and looked between them. "Is the cold gone?" Claire touched his forehead, almost. He leaned against Sebastian, then reached for Claire until all three of them were connected. When the sun finally broke through the storm clouds, the monitor settled into a steady rhythm and remained there. Mrs. Finch covered her mouth as tears. Alden bowed his head. Sebastian closed his eyes for one brief second, overwhelmed by relief. Then Lucien looked up at Claire and asked the question everyone in the room heard. "When I am well, will you still stay?" Claire looked at Lucien as the first sunlight touched the windows of Blackwood House. His face was still pale, but no longer colorless. Warmth had returned to his hands, and the monitor beside him held a steady rhythm. "Yes," she said, "I will stay." Lucien smiled with the quiet relief of a child who had been afraid to hope. Sebastian watched them from the other side of the couch. For once the king had no immediate command, no guarded answer, and no wall of silence strong enough to hide what he felt. He only lowered his head and let the moment exist. By noon, the independent physician from the Western estate had examined Lucia, confirmed that the suppressants were leaving his system, and sealed every medical record for the royal hearing. Dr. Harrow, Lady Voss, Mr. Vale, Lord Mercer, and the others who had participated were removed from authority and placed under formal guard. The council members who had known nothing gave testimony. Those who had ignored warning signs surrendered their crests until they could prove their loyalty. No one was harmed. The kingdom did not need revenge. It needed truth. 3 days later, the royal houses gathered in the great hall. Claire stood near the back beside Mrs. Finch, wearing the same simple blue dress she had brought for the job interview. She expected to remain unnoticed. Instead, Sebastian entered with Lucien holding his hand and stopped before the entire council. The prince walked without trembling. A soft murmur moved through the room. Sebastian waited until it faded. For years, he said, we were told my son was weak by nature. We were told his suffering protected the crown. Those words were lies spoken by people who feared the future more than they valued a child. Lucien looked toward Claire. Sebastian followed his gaze. When danger entered my home, the most powerful people in this kingdom failed him. A human nanny did not. Every eye turned toward her. Claire felt the weight of centuries judging a woman who had arrived only days earlier because she needed rent money. Sebastian continued. She had no title, no army, and no knowledge of our laws. She had only the courage to stand between a frightened child and those who intended to use him. That courage succeeded where power failed. He stepped down from the raised platform and approached her. Claire Dawson, I once treated you as a suspect. After you undo that wrong, I can only ensure this kingdom never repeats it. He held out a silver emblem, unlike the old house crest. It carried no hidden mechanism and no symbol of ownership. At its center was the image of a small wooden horse. By royal decree, I name you guardian of the crown prince. The title grants you protection, authority over his care, and the freedom to leave whenever you choose. Claire looked at Lucien. And if I choose to stay? Sebastian's expression softened. Then this house will finally become a homeblem. No oath bound her, no blood price was demanded. Her place beside Lucien came from a choice freely made. In the weeks that followed, Blackwood House changed. The stopped clocks were repaired, the hidden passages were sealed permanently, the grey nursery curtains were replaced with warm gold ones, and Lucien began spending more time outside beneath the winter sun. His strength returned slowly but steadily. Claire taught him to measure his breathing when fear rose. Sebastian learned to sit with him before fear arrived. The king and the nanny did not become close through grand declarations. Trust grew in quieter ways. He asked before making decisions about Lucien's care. She told him when authority had blinded him. He listened. One evening, as snow settled softly across the pine trees, Lucien fell asleep on the couch with the repaired wooden horse resting against his chest. Claire sat beside him, one hand near his blanket. Sebastian stood at the window, watching the final light fade across the mountains. My son called for you when he believed the world was ending, he said. Claire looked at the sleeping child. He needed someone to stay. Sebastian turned toward her. So did I. The words not a demand and not a promise made too soon. They were only the truth. Claire rose and joined him at the window. Behind them, Lucien breathed evenly, safe between the two people who had chosen him over fear. Outside, dawn-colored light lingered beneath the clouds, turning the snow silver and gold. Sebastian had ruled the darkness for centuries, but it was a human woman's kindness that finally taught his house how to welcome the light.